Welcome, Ram fans. This is Steve Ivy with your final score, which, of course, was Colorado State University 76, Texas Christian University 72 in overtime. The Rams get off of their three-game bender and come back to the ranks of above 500 at 4-3 with a big win over a Big 12 team. And I got to tell you, this was the team the way we expect to see it. It is a dominant performance by Nick Clifford, 25 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. I'm going to talk about him later. Jalen Lake with 15. But we saw what happens to this team and how they look when Rashawn Mbemba gets minutes. 10 points, 6 rebounds. When I pull up the box score, you'll see how good of a plus-minus he was. But this was, make no mistake about it, it was a team effort. Other contributors, you got to give Bowen Bourne credit. Yes, Bowen missed badly on a three-point shot that could have won it at the end of regulation. But Bowen had 13 points in the second half, including a game-tying 3 in the last minute. Ethan Morton didn't score a lot, but he did a lot of intangibles. I think he made one of the plays of the game, stopping a 2-on-1 fast break after a bad turnover, and I have no idea how he kept TCU from scoring. It was almost a 2-on-0, and somehow he got back in the middle and cluttered it up and forced a miss. And quite frankly, it was a great play, and it allowed CSU to maintain the momentum, even though they struggled down the stretch. Who else? Who else did I notice? I'm spacing on somebody. I'll remember it in a little bit. But all in all, a great team effort and really, really needed in terms of the way this team has been playing. We started seeing signs yesterday. If you watched the watch along yesterday, I felt pretty good about how we played. And while we lost the game by 5, there were a lot of good signs, including how well we did on the boards, how well we did in the paint. And the only thing that really beat us yesterday was three-point shooting. And for a while today, it looked like the three-point shooting was going to beat us again. TCU, in their game yesterday against Santa Clara, got smoked. They shot 1 for 17 on their three-pointers. In their first half today, they were 7 for 12. That made a huge difference. I will tell you right now, I did some, I looked at the first half numbers. I'm going to pull up all kinds of box score stuff in a sec, but one of the interesting things about our defense in the first half, we are obviously doing a great job defending the paint. TCU shot 4 for 16 on their 2-point shots in the first half, and the only thing keeping them in the game was their 3-point shooting. At halftime, I started I texted back and forth with a friend of mine, Luke Kingsley, and I said, we're ahead, we're outscoring them in the paint, we're out rebounding them, and even though we were turning the ball over a little more than TCU, we were outscoring them on turnovers, and with points off turnovers. And I said, if we play like that in the second half, we'll win by 10. Well, TCU got the message from their coach in the second half. Jamie Dixon obviously gave them a message of, you got to start bullying these guys and getting to the rim. And they did. And before you know it, they were shooting free throws. The only thing keeping TCU in the game and allowed them to actually blow out to an early 5-point lead in the second half was a ton of free throws. I think they had 2 field goals and 5 free throws in the first 6 minutes or first 5 minutes of the second half. And it was one of those things where they were using a little more of the maturity they have at the guard position. They have a senior guard named Frankie Collins, who's a very good player. Frankie Collins, if you go back 3 years, was a backup freshman guard at Michigan who got the start because Michigan was in the NCAA tournament, got the start against CSU and absolutely bullied our guards and had a really, really good game. And you saw what he's capable of. He transferred from Michigan to Arizona State, ended up with TCU this year, and he's pretty good. He's very physical. I can tell you right now, he'd be an interesting player to have on our team with his physicality. He gets a little tangential sometimes. He kind of loses the plot, but a very talented player. If you could give him a little discipline, he'd be pretty darn good. But Collins was keeping him in the game. But the TCU kind of started slowing down in terms of their shooting and stopped making threes. I'm gonna bring up the box score and take a look at this. This was the final box score. You can see TCU shot. They ended up shooting 9 for 25 over the game from three. They were 7 for 12 in the first half. So if you look at their stats and look at the second half box, this is what their second half box looked like. 19 for 24 on their free throws. That also includes overtime, by the way. But 19 for 24 on free throws, a total of 7 field goals, 2 for 10 from the three-point line. I didn't think CSU got a very good whistle. Those of you who have been around a while know that you probably recognized Eric Curry. He's the one that took out Isaiah Stevens a couple of years ago at San Diego State, knocked him to the floor and created a nice layup for San Diego State, and wasn't even embarrassed and made it very, very clear that it was Isaiah's fault that he tripped over Curry. So he made some strange calls in the second half. There was a 3-point shot by TCU on the perimeter where they called a foul on Nick Clifford, and Nick was 6 inches away from fouling the guy. Never touched the guy, never touched his arm. Every replay angle showed there was no touching. And the bottom line is Curry made that call, and there was another call that they made on Clifford. There was another call. I'm trying to remember. They made another one on, it might have been Kyan Evans. And you go, what? Guys throw their hands up wondering what the heck's going on. And then anytime we got contact, there wasn't going to be a foul. So it was kind of interesting. But that's the second half box for TCU. CSU's defense was very, very good in the paint today. And if you go to the overall final box, you can see that CSU outscored TCU 30-24 in the paint. Even though we turned the ball over 16 times to TCU's 13, we scored more points off of turnovers than they did. And again, that's a big factor. And then you look at the rebound margin, 44-28 or 44-38, really, really good on the defensive glass. And the guy to highlight there was Nick Clifford. Nick had 12 rebounds, 11 of them were defensive rebounds. He was an absolute monster on the glass, especially in the second half as he looked to take over the game. He got a little tired, you could tell. He basically played every minute of the second half and every minute of overtime, total of 43 minutes. But all in all, it was a great effort. I got a comment here. Here you go. This is it. And this is Neat, great all-around game. Bourne getting good in time off bench, gives Ram production off the bench. Bowen Bourne did what he was supposed to do. And the only thing that had me laughing was I didn't mind that he missed the 3-point shot at the end of regulation. He had to hurry that. And what you don't see is sometimes there's a guy 6'8" with long arms coming out at you, obscuring things. That miss was bad, but I wasn't upset about that one. The one that got me was he made a great drive to the basket, and I think it was in overtime. Yeah, it was in overtime, and he missed a layup. And I guarantee you he's never missed a layup like that in his life, or if he has, it was back in the 4th grade. But 13 points off the bench for Bowen, 4 for 7 from the field, 3 for 5 on his 3-pointers. And if you noticed, if he got the ball, they did not want to foul him. If you notice, if you're aware of this, Bowen has yet to miss a free throw. I think he's somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 for 15 on the season. He put in a good 26-minute effort. I did want to highlight, I want to see, while I'm talking here, I'm going to pull up, I want to see if the Ken Palm numbers are up to see how people were evaluated in Ken Palm. So let's see if we moved up. We moved up to 110th in Ken Palm with that win. TCU's down to 84th. The guy that had Bowen Bourne had the great game, but obviously Clifford was the star of the game. I'm going to pull up the Ken Palm numbers. Let me get rid of the box score here, and this is kind of fun what I get to do here, sharing screens and stuff. Let's share the Ken Palm. And if you look at the Ken Palm with the offensive rating, Ken Palm has Nick Clifford as their MVP. If his algorithm didn't produce Nick Clifford as an MVP, that would be absurd. But you could see we scored. We didn't score that well. TCU is a good defensive team. Overplayed a lot, forced a lot of turnovers. We did end up with 16 assists. Kyan Evans had 5 assists. Nick Clifford had 6. Again, 16 turnovers. You can see Nick had 6 turnovers. A couple of them were really sloppy. There were a couple in the end of regulation. He was dead tired, and you could see it. Nico, by the way, I will say this. Nico took a great timeout in overtime when we were up. I think, I want to say we were up 4, and he took a great timeout with like 2 minutes to go. We were dead tired. We were about ready to fall over. And, or maybe it was in regulation. Anyway, it was a timeout where we needed to really do something with the ball, and our guys were ready to fall over. They're giving everything. So it was something. Anyway, Nick with an offensive rating of 101, Bourne 138 on an O rating. That's obviously really good. But the other one, as I mentioned, Mbemba 123. The other thing that I didn't show when I had the box score up, if you look at plus minuses, and plus some people like plus minuses. There's some good and bad about it, but I can tell you the guy that made the big difference on the floor today was Rashawn Mbemba. When he was on the floor, he played 24 minutes. First time he's been anywhere near 20 minutes in a game. Rashawn was plus 14, and he was very, very physical inside. He sets the big screens that this offense needs. And takes up a lot of space in the paint defensively. And as a result, CSU gets very, very good when he's in the game. If we can get 24 minutes out of him the rest of the season, this team's going to get better and better. There were still a few issues in terms of being tired. Here we go. Can I put the plus minus up? Corey wants to see the plus minus. Let's see. I can. I will put it up. Let's do that, Corey. Let's get the plus minus up. You can take a look. I was reading them off, but let's take a look and see. You can see the guys off the bench. And what was really interesting, Crocker Johnson struggled a little bit, but he was out there a lot by himself as playing in the small ball lineup. I'm not sure that small ball lineup. It's something Nico really, really likes, and they do some good things. But I'll tell you what, they seem to struggle at the end of the first half, and they seem to struggle in the second half. And so Crocker Johnson minus 10, Rashawn Mbemba 14. And if you look at the 4 bench guys, Keyshawn Williams plus 1 in 11 minutes, Bowen Bourne plus 3, and then Morton and Jorgensen both plus 2. And as I mentioned, Morton did a lot of the intangibles today, and that's why Coach Medved really wants him on the floor. He missed around the rim, but as I mentioned before, he made a great defensive play on a 2-on-1. He got a couple of big rebounds. His defense was outstanding. He had 3 assists against only 1 turnover. He had 5 rebounds. Basically fills up the stat sheet other than scoring. And if he could have scored around the rim today, he probably would have had 8 or 10 points, and CSU would have won a little more easily. But he did some really, really important things toward the end of that game. So that was that. Let's drop that out right now. That was the plus minus. Corey piping in. Corey, thanks again for being here from Butler, PA. I love my Butler posse. They're providing great help to the chat. Corey with another comment. How about those apples? Finally got that W. I don't know about you, Corey. I think you saw it yesterday too. We saw this coming. We saw some really good stuff yesterday, and the only thing that beat us was we just got outscored at the 3-point line. We did all the right things. When CSU is cooking, they're playing good, sound, fundamental defense. They're scoring in the paint. They're rebounding the ball. And this team especially can score off of turnovers. And they showed it today. TCU prides themselves in creating turnovers defensively and scoring off turnovers. And yet the team that won the scoring off turnover battle was CSU. The other thing I took a little pleasure in today, I mentioned Frankie Collins, that he got the better of CSU in the NCAA tournament in what was it, 22. But there were two guys playing for TCU today that are former Wyoming players. One, Noah Reynolds. The second, Brendan Wenzel. Wenzel was 1 for 5 with 5 points out of the starting lineup. 1 for 4 on it. He's a 3-point specialist, and to be honest with you, he had a big 3 out of the corner off of a in transition, and I can't believe how badly he missed it. He hit the backboard first, bounced it off the backboard in the rim. That was the kind of shot that he used to make for Wyoming. We dodged a little bit of a bullet with that miss, but it was a joy watching him be a -4 over 30 minutes. And then Noah Reynolds was he ended up with 12 points, 4 for 11 shooting, 2 for 7 from 3, missed a couple badly in the second half, -8 over 38 minutes. So the 2X Cowboys, what a shame. What a shame. They lost. They go home sad. The good news is they don't have to go home to Laramie. Corey, turnovers holding this team back from taking off. Apparently, Medved finally got frustrated enough with Evans. Evans was not bad in terms of turning the ball over. I don't think he turned the ball over that much today. He had 5 assists and 2 turnovers. Neek was the one turning the ball over. That's because he had to really force a lot of things. My bigger issue with Kyan right now is I think he needs to be more aggressive in terms of sometimes when you get overplaying defenses like that. I think you sometimes need to figure out a way to beat your man and get into the paint. Ethan Morton did that a couple of times. I remember one specifically in the first half. And I think he hit, I can't remember who he hit on a bounce pass. It might have been Jorgensen, might have been Neek, but Morton did it well. The other thing I forgot to mention about Morton, he was in on an important play when we were up. I think we were up 2 in the last minute and a half, and we're obviously going one-on-one with Clifford from the top of the key, just trying to let him figure out a way to create a shot. And if you go back and you watch the replay, Ethan Morton sealed Neek beat his defender, and the help defender got sealed underneath the basket by Ethan Morton legally. They don't call offensive fouls on that as long as you're not holding and really moving and sliding. He basically put the guy on his butt and just stood there, and his strength managed to hold the guy off and allowed Neek to shoot basically an uncontested layup. And that's an intangible. That's when I sent a note to my buddy Luke, and I said, that's the kind of intangible that Nico really likes. So anyway, here we go. The fullback play. That's the kind of physical play you need in the paint. That's why Morton's in there. That's why Rashawn Mbemba is a very important component on that team. He used to call that the Iron the Iron Haywood play. Steeler fan, Butler, Pennsylvania. Greg Ironhead Haywood. Who could forget him? Anyway, that was a huge play. But all in all, I'm not going to talk too much longer. We started to see signs of what this team can do, and that was what was important. I think the frustration from Coach Medved has been there. He's starting now that he has, and I've talked to him about it. And I think I've mentioned it on plenty of these live streams after the games. How much I thought the Rams missed the physical play of Rashawn Mbemba, and him sitting out games, having to play Kyle Jorgensen maybe a few too many minutes. And don't get me wrong, I like Kyle, but he's a freshman and he can get pushed around. Jalen Crocker Johnson is not is 6'8", 230. He's a very mobile big, but he is going to be better in the long run at the 4 than the 5. And lo and behold, when you bring Mbemba in, all of a sudden that defense shores up and we start winning rebounds. Neek gets more space because Mbemba creates the space for him off the glass. So I said that was going to be very, very important. We've seen the last 2 games. This team could very easily have won the other night over Washington. They got a quad 2 win tonight over TCU. I don't know if TCU will get up into the top 50, but 51 to 100 will be a quad 2. That's the first quad 2 win. That'll be a very, very valuable win also for the conference. The one thing that we always talk about when we talk about non-conference play is how important it is for all these teams to get quad 1 and quad 2 wins. In the end, it makes it easier to get at-large bids. You determine the number of at-large bids your conference gets by how well the entire conference does in the non-con. And to date, Utah State and Nevada have been doing well. Boise State has recorded wins and losses. San Diego State has recorded wins and losses. UNLV has a couple of losses. I'm missing one, but the bottom line is last year's the Mountain West, the top of the Mountain West was unbelievable in the non-conference. Oh, New Mexico has a good win, but they've also got a couple of tough losses. So last year, a lot of teams were 12-1 in the non-con. This year, with 11 games, it looks like a lot of them are going to be 8-3, 9-2. Some might even be 7-4 with good schedules, and that means probably not going to see a 6-bid league. But if they close out the non-con over the next few weeks, you've got a good shot at I think 4 bids. So anyway, that's that. Hell of a game by the Rams. Here's Lee, Horned Frogs, middle of the pack, Big 12 team. We need to have 2 wins next week, including a win over the Buffs. I will tell you right now, we have a nice home game with Loyola Marymount, and it'll be a tricky game. This team will be a little tired. They'll need a little bit of recovery, but come home and win that. And then the Buffs, who got an interesting win by 1 point on a kind of a crazy 2-pointer by a transfer from Washington State. I think his name is Jakomowski. They beat UConn in Maui, but then got absolutely trounced by Michigan State. And I forget who the other game was against, but they lost by double digits, and they were never really in the game. So an opportunity for CSU to close out the non-con with hopefully 2 wins next week, as Lee says, and then on to I think we have finals, and then we go to Las Vegas for the VCU game. That's right now a quad 1 game. VCU is a top 50 team. That'll be a very, very good game. They have a loss to Nevada. They lost by a few points to Nevada, but VCU is a good team. That'll be a good game in Vegas, and then we close out the non-con in Moby against Radford, a team from Virginia. If this team can play like they played today, there's a shot at winning all 4 of them. They're going to have to tighten up a few things. I think offensively, they're going to have to get a little better flow and a little better spacing. They still looked a little out of sorts a couple of times where you had 2 guys kind of crossing paths, taking away the flow of the ball. When the ball's not being reversed really well by CSU's offense, sometimes it's a defense, sometimes it's our timing, and I think the timing was off a little bit. So they've got a little bit of work to do on that, but hopefully after these 2 games in Palm Springs, the team will learn a lot. Number one, it's nice to come out with a win over a good team, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to wrap up now. Next show I do for CSU will be on Monday morning with Brady Hull. We'll do Monday morning cup of coffee. Don't know who I'm going to have for a guest yet. We'll try and get a player. I'll contact the program and see if we can get somebody. But we'll have a fun show on Monday. The other thing I want to encourage people to do, if you can, we're going to be doing. I do at least a game a week with the Mountain West. I'm doing it with my friend Tom Moser, who does the Top of the Mountain West podcast. And Tom and I are doing a game tonight. We'll be going live, hopefully at 6:45 p.m. We're going to be doing the Utah State and University of North Texas game. It's the final of the NIT tip-off tournament down in Kissimmee, Florida. Obviously, Utah State is undefeated and playing very, very well. They've been playing like a top 25 team. They'll crack into the rankings pretty darn soon if they keep playing like this. And it's against North Texas. And, of course, we have some interest in interested in North Texas because their head coach is Ross Hodge, who was an assistant alongside Nico underneath Larry Eustace for 1 year. Nico left to take the head coaching job at Furman, and Ross stayed for a few more years and was basically the lead assistant under Eustace. Left CSU to go to UNT as an assistant and took over their job last year, and he's doing a bang-up job. They're in the top 75 right now. I think they're about 63rd or so in KenPom, and it'll be a good game with Utah State. But the other one is they have an assistant named Jace Hurl, and Jace was an assistant here for a couple of years under Eustace. And many of you might remember, and many of you probably don't remember, Jace Hurl won a game as a head coach for CSU when Eustace got canned in 2018. I'm sorry, I had to use that word. When he was politely asked to leave, no, he got canned. Jace took over and he coached CSU to a victory. I can't remember who it was over, but it was actually fun. And I got to know Jace. I know Ross pretty well, and I got to know Jace pretty well. They're both great guys. And while I'll be rooting for the Mountain West team because we really want the Mountain West teams to do well, I will not be unhappy if North Texas figures out a way to win the game, because they really are good guys and they're like family as well. So one last comment from Corey: the more volume Cliff gets, the better the offense looks. Milk the cow you have. The one thing I will say about that, he ran himself into the ground, and it makes it really, really tough at the end of the game. But when he's handling the ball, today they were working a lot from the wing. When he's wheeling and dealing from the top of the key, he becomes a really good distributor of the ball. He had 6 assists today, and I do like when he turns into more of a point forward and kind of takes over the game. But he's not afraid to share it as well. He sets up. He's a good passer. A little loose with the ball sometimes. Going to have to get a little tighter. That's going to keep getting better and better. But his passing was very, very good, and he sets up guys for easy buckets at the rim and wide open three-pointers because he has the defense looking at him. So anyway, good comment, Corey, but I really want to see him. I would like to see, 18 points out of Clifford with 12 rebounds, and I'd like to see 6 assists, and I'd like to see the other guys chip in a little more, and I'd like to see the assists really spread out. Today we had 16. I'd like to see that number get closer to 20. So anyway, that's that. I'm going to say goodbye. Check me out tonight with my friend Tom on Top of the Mountain West. Tonight in the Mountain West when we do Utah State and North Texas. And if you can't make that, check me out on Monday morning with Brady Hall when I do Monday morning cup of coffee. Anyway, I'm going to leave you 76-72 in overtime. CSU Rams get back on track. Go to 4-3. Go Rams.